Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you all to another lecture on electrical machines. Previously, in the last two modules, we have discussed about the transformers and the DC machines. In today's class, we shall start with the concept of AC machinery, and in that, we will first of all discuss the induction machines. So let us start with the AC machinery. AC machine can be broadly classified in terms of the asynchronous and the synchronous machine. In each of these two machines, there is a possibility that the machine can work as a motor or it can be utilized as a generator. But for most of the cases, the synchronous machine is used both as a motor as well as a generator, while for majority of the operation, the induction machine or the asynchronous machine is only used as a motor. This asynchronous machine is also known as an induction motor, and it is a very widely used electrical machine in today's world. Induction motor is a machine which has a very simple structure. It is rugged, simple, and almost maintenance-free machine, and therefore it is so extensively used in today's world that almost 70% of the electrical power flows through the winding of the induction machine. Induction motor, likewise any other motor, it has two parts. One is the stator part, which is the stationary part, and the other one is known as the rotor part. Mind that this stator part and the rotor part, they represent, for a DC machine, this rotor was called as the armature circuit, while the stator was known as the field circuit. Here, in order to differentiate it with the AC machines, the concept of the stator and the rotor are essentially used to describe in almost all kind of AC machines. Now, among these two parts, which is the stator part and the rotor part, the stator is actually a stationary part. That is, it is a part which is fixed, which do not move, while this rotor is a mechanical part which rotates at some fixed mechanical speed. So this is a rotating part, and henceforth it is known as the rotor. Stator and the rotor, they both have a connection through air gap which is present between the rotor and the stator, and usually this air gap is from 0.4 millimeter to 4 millimeter. For most of the machines which are normally used in the industry, the air gap between the stator and the rotor is between 0.4 millimeter to 4 millimeter, and specific materials are used to identify the clearance between the stator and the rotor winding. Now, the stator part of both the synchronous machine and the induction machine is exactly the same, and we will discuss a little bit about these stator windings in a short while. Rotor circuit in an AC machine can have two types of winding. One, the conventional three-phase winding made up of enamel wire, that is, the wire is insulated, and the other type of winding of which is available in the induction machine is a squirrel cage winding. Based on these two types of windings of the rotor circuitry of induction machine can be classified in terms of two different types of machine. This one is known as the wound rotor induction machine, whereas if the windings of the rotor winding of the induction machine are made up of just like a squirrel cage, the type of that induction machine is known as the cage induction machine or squirrel cage induction motor. Now, between these two, majority of the induction machines which are used in today's world or which are manufactured belongs to the squirrel cage winding. So we can say that a vast majority of induction machines, belong to this type of rotor winding, and hence they are known as the squirrel cage induction machines. Let me draw the squirrel cage here. So we have shorted bars here. These are solid bars. Instead of using the conductors, squirrel cage machine has solid bars which are slightly longer than the actual length of a rotor, and there are slots available inside a rotor where these solid bars are placed. The opposite ends, these opposite end, they are short circuited like this one. So the entire construction, which is the bar and these are known as the end rings, they resemble a squirrel cage. So this is a planar structure of a squirrel cage induction motor rotor. We have these two ends available. So we have these are the rotor bars, and here we have the end rings which are meant to short circuit the path of the electrical circuit. Now with these short circuited ends on this cage type induction machines, it is not possible to take the electrical parameters out of the rotor circuitry, and hence we can see that the power which is inside this rotor machine is equal to 0, and no electrical power can be taken out of the induction motor rotor circuitry. Now this whole thing resembles like that of a squirrel cage on which the hamsters run. We might have seen these little gadgets or the hamster in which they run. So this is a very common sort of the rotor circuitry available here. This entire construction that consists of the solid conductors which are here as well as these end rings, they resemble the squirrel cage from which this name is derived. And for most of the small and medium power applications size induction machines, these bars as well as these end rings, they are made up of aluminum, which is a die cast aluminum, molded to form an integral block. Whereas this particular part, which is known as a wound rotor induction machine, it is the one which is very similar to that of the stator winding, and we have slots in which we connect the three-phase windings in usually in the form of Y connections, and then we have the slip rings available which turn with the rotor. So the revolving slip rings as well as the brushes which are used in this conventional wound rotor induction machine, they pose challenges in the maintenance of the machines. So this one requires to have the slip rings and the brushes. So advantage here is that external connections with the rotor circuit are possible, so that we can add resistance in the circuit wherever it is required, usually during the starting of induction machine phase. It is very helpful because in the start of the induction machine usually draws very large amount of current, which is 10 to 12 times the rated current. So with the help of the external connections available, it is a possibility, it is quite easy to add external resistances whenever an induction machine is energized for any given operation. However, with the slip rings and the brushes in place, the major problem arises with the concept of the maintenance in the induction machines. Now, one of the most classical kind of advantages of an induction machine is that it requires almost zero maintenance as far as the connected in the form of the squirrel cage. However, with these conventional schemes, which is known as the wound rotor induction machines, we do have issues with the maintenance, and therefore the wound rotor induction motor is not much used in industrial applications. Now, before we move further, I just need to elaborate one more thing, that these wires are not made parallel. Rather, we have a slightly skewed structure of the solid conductor bars to reduce the mechanical hum. It also reduces the, or it also prevents the rotor teeth to remain under the stator teeth. So now that we have an idea about the stator winding, let us move further to discuss the principle of operation of an induction machine. So the principle of operation of an induction motor. The three-phase induction motor, it is based on the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, which is same as that of a transformer. So we can say that the induction motor is a special case of a transformer as far as the application of the principle of operation is concerned. However, here we have, instead of having a stationary secondary winding, suppose that we have, this is the transformer model, here we have the primary winding and here we have the secondary winding. The induction machine can also be represented, or it can also be modeled in terms of this simple transformer model, and we can say that the primary winding is the stator winding, whereas we have the secondary winding is actually the rotor winding. Now, apart from this simple principle of operation, there are a lot of things which are different in the concept of the induction motor. The first concept is that instead of having a magnetic core linking the primary and the secondary winding, here we have between the stator and the rotor, we have this side, this part, which is known as the air gap. It is present in between the stator winding and the rotor winding. So this is the first difference when it comes to the difference between the transformer and an induction motor. Apart from that, the principle of operation for both the transformer and the rotor is exactly the same. That is the Faraday law of induction. The second thing which comes here is the Lenz's law, or the Lorentz force on a conductor. Now the problem here is that since we have a stator and a rotor assembly available with the air gap between them, the problem is how to create or how to apply this Faraday law of induction onto an electrical machine which has an air gap between the stator and the rotor winding. Suppose that we have a magnetic pole here which are placed over these conductors. These conductors are actually shorted. From this side as well as from the back side. Now, because we have these two coils, and there we have the connectors available. So as you see here, that these conductors, all of these conductors which are shown here, these are the conductors. This green is all conductors. They have some length which is L, and these two ends, each end of the conductor are actually short circuited. So this one is shorting one side of the conductors, and here we have the other side of the conductor is also shorted with this blue line. Now let us say that this vertical column is a permanent magnet which is placed just above this conductor ladder, and this permanent magnet, let me just highlight this one. This permanent magnet is actually moving at a velocity v, so that the magnetic field which is developed because of this conductor, it is spreading across the connectors, or it is cutting across the connector, one connector after the another. So we can say that this is connector number n, this is connector number n minus 1, and this is connector number n plus 1. So at time t equal to 0, this is at connector number n, this permanent magnet which is moving at a velocity v is actually cutting the connector n, and at some time t equal to, at a time equals to t equal to 0 plus x second, it is now interacting with the magnetic field. Its magnetic field is interacting with the connector n plus 1, and at time t equal to 0 minus x second, it was on the connector n minus 1. So this magnet is actually moving over these connectors at a rapid velocity which is equal to v. The length of the connector is equal to L. So what happens, that a sequence of events take place in this ladder circuit. The first sequence is that on these particular conductors we have a voltage E that will be induced on these particular conductors, and the voltage across these particular conductor E is equal to BLV, which is because of the application of the Faraday's law. So this is the first thing which will happen here. Then, because we have short circuited these two ends of the conductors, so the next thing that will eventually happen is that as soon as we have the voltage induced in these particular conductors, there will be a flow of current I which will flow in these two conductors. Now if we have some current flowing through this particular conductor N, let us say that the total current is I, then this half of the current, owing to the symmetry, will actually pass through the connector number n minus 1, and half of the current will flow through the conductor. So here we have the current which is I by 2. Half of the current will flow through this connector n minus 1, and consequently at this particular point, where at this particular point the permanent magnet is right above the number n, the total current I actually flows. Now as we have seen from the Lenz's law, so we do have the voltage available which is E, we have the current flowing here because of these two shorted ends of the conductors. So there will be a force which will be exerted on these particular ladders, and consequently what happened, that this force will try to drag the conductor along the magnetic field. So what will happen, that this conductor will actually try to move in the same direction as the direction of this permanent magnet which is shown here. So what will happen if the ladder also moves with the same speed as that of this conductor, as that of this permanent magnet? Of course, if there is no relative difference between these two, then the fields will be stationary with respect to each other, and this magnet shall have it shall have no effect on these particular conductors if the conductors are also moving at the same velocity as that of V. So the consequence here is that if we have a ladder of conductors which is wrapped something like this one that I have earlier shown, where these two represents these rails which are shorting these conductors available. So these are the conductors. This is, let us say, this is conductor number n, this is n minus 1, this is n plus 1, this is n plus 2, and so on and so forth. So it's a 360 degree, it's a complete cylinder where we have the conductors placed on the edge, on the top surface. So what happened here is that there will be a mechanical force which will be exerted on these conductors, and if that conductors are allowed to move, if they have something where they can move on some axis, then the conductor will start move, then the rotor will start to move, and that movement will be in the same direction as that of the magnetic field, because it has to nullify the effect. So it can only be possible if to nullify the effect if the rotor also moves in the same direction where the stator magnetic field is moving. So if the stator magnetic field is moving in a counterclockwise direction, in a clockwise direction, then the rotor also has to move in the clockwise direction, because this is the only way through which the rotor can nullify the effect of the stator magnetic field. And this is what exactly the Lorentz force on the conductor or the Lenz's law tells us. If the magnetic field is rotating on the counterclockwise direction, then the rotor will only also move on the counterclockwise direction. Remember that in a three-phase electrical circuit, the direction of the movement of the magnetic field requires only to change the sequence from ABC to ACB. So if we change the sequence of the two phases, then the magnetic field will change its direction from clockwise to counterclockwise and vice versa, and consequently the direction of the rotor will also change when it comes to the operation of the induction machine. So now you see here that what we have shown here is that we have converted this simple rail into a cage, into a squirrel cage, which acts like a moving part of the induction machine. So now we have the sequences here. Number one, the permanent magnet is moved at a velocity v. Number two, it interacts with the conductors, forming a ladder, right, which is this one. Number three is E will be induced as a result of that, and that E will give rise to the current I, because the ends are short circuited. As a result, we have some force F which will be exerted on the ladder circuit. Now, if the conductor ladder is allowed to move freely, then it will also try to accelerate towards the direction of the permanent magnet. So if in this particular direction this permanent magnet is moving at a velocity v towards the right side, therefore the ladder will also try to move on the right side in order to nullify the effect which is caused by the movement of this permanent magnet, right? But the point here is that as the ladder picks up the speed, the conductors, the relative velocity between the conductors and the permanent magnet will occur at a less rapid pace. Consequently, the induced voltage E and the current I will diminish at the end. So what will happen if the speed of the ladder and the speed of the motor of the magnet are essentially the same? So if we have some velocity Vx for the permanent magnet and this ladder is moving at a velocity that is equal to Vy, if this Vx becomes equal to Vy, then both the things are actually stationary with respect to each other. And consequently, if they are moving at the same speed, then there will be no induced EMF in the system, and because of the no induced EMF, there will be no current I, and consequently, what will happen that this force which is exerted on these conductors will be equal to 0, and as a result, the motor will decelerate. As it will decelerate, there will be again a relative difference between the speed of the permanent magnet and the speed of the ladder. So consequently, what will happen? There will be an induced voltage with an induced current, and it will again exert a field, and it will again experience a magnetic force onto the conductor, and consequently, the motor will rotate at a fixed speed, which is near to the synchronous speed of the particular machine. So, in an induction motor, if we close up a ladder, it forms a squirrel cage, just like this one. So this is actually the ladder circuit. If I rotate it something like this one, so this is actually the ladder circuit, right? So we can transform this. We can roll this up just like this one. So we have this particular paper. This is a rail. So if I roll it up something like this one, so it resembles the rotor circuit. Over this we have the connectors available here, which are not placed exactly in parallel with the slots, rather it is a little bit skewed here. So instead of having it placed something like this one, we place it a little bit slanted to reduce the magnetic hum here. These ends, both ends, they are short circuited through some ring. Both the ends are short circuited through the ring. So therefore, if there is a magnetic field if there is a voltage induced in the rotor bars, the immediate action is that there will be a current flow in the rotor circuit as well. So the field is produced by the three-phase current. Now the point here is that how we can have some moving magnetic field. Do we have some magnet, real magnet, which is actually rotated outside? As far as the construction is concerned, we do not have a provision of having a permanent magnet in an induction machine. So how can we actually realize this moving magnetic field in a circuit? For that thing, we opt for the three-phase supply, which is supplied to the stator circuit of the machine. So let us first of all examine the rotating magnetic field concept, because instead of having a rotating magnetic bar or permanent magnet over a ladder circuit, now we need to understand the things in a real practical perspective. The first thing is that, okay, the rotor circuit is now well understood, that we have the shorted bars available that will experience a force whenever they are placed inside a moving magnetic field. But the question is how to produce a moving magnetic field. So the moving magnetic field is supplied by the stator circuit within which the rotor is placed. So let us first of all examine the rotating concept of the rotating magnetic field in the stator of an AC machine. So let me write down this as rotating magnetic field concept. So the concept of rotating magnetic field is very simple. It says that if a three-phase set of currents, each of equal magnitude and 120-degree apart, flows into a three-phase winding, then it produce a rotating magnetic field of constant amplitude. So if we have a three-phase system, here we have so let us say that we have, let us examine this particular waveform, set of three waveforms. These are the current I for phase A, IA, IB and IC. Let us examine it at this omega t. Now at this particular point, we can see that the current IA as well as the current IB, they are both positive. However, the IC is peak negative. So we have IA and IB both positive, but they are not at this peak because their peaks are occurring at these two instants. However, the IC is at its maximum current IM. Now, if I draw them on the vectorial grounds, here we have the positive current IA. This dotted end shows the IA dash, which is the negative IA. Then also I have, this is IC, and consequently this dotted end is IC dash, and here we have this is the IB, and this dotted end is IB dash. So since both the IA and IB, they are both positive at this at this very point of the time axis omega t. So here we have the current IA. IB is also positive. So we have this IB, this is also positive. However, this IC is negative and it is longer than the vectors shown for the current IA and IB. Now because we have the IA and IB both positive and here we have IC in IC which is more negative, the cumulative effect here is that the resultant sum of these three vectors, the resultant is in the direction of current IC dash, and this thing actually is actually changed if we move on to this particular point. Here we can see that this IA is positive while the currents IB and IC, they are both negative, which means that for this particular IA we have the IA, whereas the IB is negative here, this is IB negative, and here we have the IC negative. So the combined effect at this instant of time is in the direction of the current IA. So in a nutshell, if we can see here that the resultant is in this direction, sometime it is in this direction, for some other time period it is in this direction. So consequently we can see that if we apply a three-phase set of currents to a winding which is 120 degree placed, then there will be a rotating magnetic field in the circuit. This is for sure now. The second thing that we need to establish is whether this magnetic field has a constant magnitude or not. For that we need to see the proof of the constant magnetic field. Now we can say that suppose that I have for a set of winding, let us say that for this side this is IA and this is IA dash. So the total current which is flowing from one side of the winding and it is coming out of the other side of the same winding, I call this IAA dash, that is equal to Im sine omega t ampere. Similarly for the phase B, it is Im sine omega t minus 120 degree ampere, and for ICC dash the same one goes with a phase difference of 240 degree from the basic one, which is the IA1. Now these three currents will ultimately produce a magnetic field which will rotate. However, because of the flow of this current in the stator winding, there will be a resultant magnetic field H. So the magnetic field H, because of the current IAA dash, is equal to HM sine omega t at an angle of 0 degree, and this will be the ampere turns per meter. For the phase BB dash, the same goes with HM sine omega t minus 120 degree, and here we have the phase difference equal to 120 degree and the unit remains the same. So HCC dash t is equal to HM sine omega t minus 240 degree at an angle of 240 degree ampere turns per meter. Now since we do know that this is the magnetic field, this is H represents the magnetic field intensity, the flux density is given as B is equal to mu into H, where mu is the permeability of the free space. It is essentially a constant. So from this BAA dash becomes equal to BM sine omega t at an angle of 0, and the unit now is in Tesla. Similarly, B dash t is equal to BM sine omega t minus 120 degree at an angle of 120 degree. This is again in Tesla, and BCC dash T is equal to Bm sine omega t minus 120 degree, minus 240 degree at an angle of 240 degree, and this is also in Tesla. Now we need to determine we want to determine whether the magnetic field has a constant amplitude or not. So for that, let us examine it at some two instants. Let us say that at omega t equal to 0, we have no current from flowing in the phase A. As you can see here, if this is omega t, this current IA is equal to 0. However, we do have the current flowing in the phase B as well as in the phase C. So therefore, the magnetic field will establish only in these two phases, and consequently, at this omega t equal to 0 degree, the BAA dash is equal to 0 because IA is equal to 0. But for the phase B, it is Bm sine omega t minus 120 degree at an angle of 120 degree, and this BCC dash is equal to Bm sine omega t minus 240 degree at an angle of 240 degree, and both are in Tesla. So the net flux density within that stator winding or within that stator is equal to the sum of the BAA dash plus BB dash plus BCC dash, and that is equal to 0 plus, we can write this as under root 3 by 2 Bm at an angle of 120 degree plus under root 3 by 2 Bm at an angle of 240 degree. So if we solve this particular equation, it is quite easy to showcase that B net is equal to B net is equal to 1.5 B maximum at an angle of minus 90 degree, and this remains same for omega t equals to 90 degree, and for all the values of omega t, the value of the B net remains essentially same at 1.5 Bm minus 90 degree. So two things are now established. The first thing is that if we apply a balanced three-phase circuit, if we apply a balanced three-phase supply, then a balanced three-phase current will flow that will produce a rotating magnetic field inside the stator that will rotate at a constant speed, as well as it will have a constant magnitude or a constant magnitude for that particular magnetic field. Likewise, in the DC machines, that what we have studied, the concept of the electrical angle and the mechanical angle remains the same. In general, if there are P number of poles, if P is the number of poles on stator winding, then there are P by 2 repetitions of winding sequence. So that theta SE is equal to P by 2 theta SM. So this theta SE is equal to P by 2 theta SM. So similarly, based on this particular thing, we can say that the frequency of the stator, which is the electrical frequency FSE, is equal to P by 2 into FSM, or in terms of the speed, we can say that omega SE is equal to P by 2 into this omega SM. Now notice that this FSM, which is the speed of the mechanical speed, it is NSM divided by 60. Notice there that this FSM is equal to NSM over 60. So therefore, this FSE is equal to 120 F over P. So this is the speed of this is the synchronous speed, or which is the speed of the stator magnetic field. Now let me write this as F is the frequency of the electrical supply, P is the number of poles on the stator winding, FSE is the speed of the synchronous speed or the speed of rotating magnetic field. Now let us understand the concept of the developed torque inside an induction motor.